Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This week's video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Now, a VPN, or virtual private network, can do a lot of great things for you. It protects your data with military-grade encryption, even when you're on public Wi-Fi. It can help bypass censorship in countries where the internet's not as open as others. But to me, the coolest thing of all is being able to access all different kinds of streaming libraries. For instance, my kids watch a lot of Netflix and sometimes get sad when one of their favorite movies is phased out. Of the American version, that is. All I have to do is switch to one of Surfshark's thousands of global servers, and now the kids can watch Minions again in peace. You can get Surfshark on almost any device, and there's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. How cool is that? Support the channel by downloading Surfshark with the link in the description, and be sure to use the code WREGRET to get 83% off plus an extra 3 months for free. Now, enjoy the video.
Hey, let's do it for the content. Mega Ran. Let's go. Let's get it. Dick Kick City. It gets gritty when Mega Ran come through. The kid gets busy. Work yourself into a shoot, but you know it's legit. Like what you like, just don't be a dick. Hey, wrestling with regret. Let's get it. Yeah. What's that set? Maybe you should bottle it. Drink it and spray it on. Get Claude to model it. 8 years in, can't look back. Who else can make the Lord sweatsuits look whack? Wrestling with regret. Let's get it. Yeah.
Okay, come on. Last try. You can do this, Brian. Ooh! God, it looked a lot easier on TV. Earlier this year, the wrestling world was saddened at the sudden passing of Scott Hall at the age of 63. Introduced to an entire generation of wrestling fans as Razor Ramon, or later as one half of the Outsiders in the New World Order, the bad guy had a long and storied career. In many ways, his path would go on to become one of the most important to study in all of modern wrestling history, both in and out of the ring. I mean, the guy helped make guaranteed contracts a thing in wrestling. That alone makes him a king among men. One of the most charismatic wrestlers in the last 30 years, Hall exuded star quality, yet was ultimately limited by the fate of the pencil and his own personal struggles with drugs and alcohol, to the point where it at one time overshadowed his in-ring accomplishments. But demons or no, the man is arguably one of the greatest performers to have never won a world championship. In his later years, his recovery that was facilitated by Diamond Dallas Page served as an inspiration to many. Watching him seemingly getting clean after so many false starts allowed fans to finally celebrate the man for who he was and what he did as a performer. And though we've learned since his passing that the story of his last couple of years may not have been as cut and dry as many thought, for a brief moment, Hall was able to receive his due and was rightly praised for his body of work in professional wrestling. And to kick off Season 12 of Wrestling with Regret, yes, I still have seasons, no, I'm not sure why, I'm gonna rank them, my picks for the top 8 greatest moments in Scott Hall's career. Hey yo. Number 8, no selling getting hit in the head with a drink. No, this is not a joke entry. I believe this is legitimately one of his best in-ring moments. I mean, it's gotta be one of the coolest reactions to anything in wrestling, right? Who else but the man more handsome than 10 movie stars could refuse to register getting dinked in the head with a cup full of what we can only hope is just soda, then calmly slick his hair back and quote Warren Zevon? That one moment is great, but it's just one of many examples that speak to this effortlessly cool quality that Hall possessed, the attribute he's practically synonymous with. He was so cool that when he decided to talk in a Cuban accent, people didn't even question it. The man was virtually unflappable, and if you can make getting hit in the head with trash one of the coolest moments of your career, it's easy to make everything else look good too. For example, number 7, making the 1-2-3 kid. As the bad guy Razor Ramon, Hall began his WWF career as a bad guy. But that cool factor I mentioned a minute ago, that's the kind of quality that keeps heels from staying heels for very long. The Federation took a unique approach to kicking off Razor's babyface turn in May of 1993, in the form of that famous moment on Raw when perennial jobber The Kid scored a monumental upset on Ramon. It comes up on almost everyone's short list of all-time Raw moments, and for good reason. It gave the Monday Night Show an air of chaos, but it also legitimized Sean Waltman, who'd go on to have a lengthy and successful career of his own. A storyline between them continued for weeks, including a moment in which Razor offered The Kid $10,000 for another match, only for The Kid to outwit Ramon and take off with the money. But then things got interesting when Money Inc. went after the young upstart. Razor stood up for the little guy, completing his face turn in the process. The bad guy had become good, and a new, unlikely star was made. The storyline is but one example of the ability Hall had to make all his opponents look good in the ring, whether or not they actually won the match. And except for maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, he did that for just about everyone, a rare trait for wrestlers of his stature. Number 6, the Wrestlerock Rumble. Before making his fortune in the WWF and WCW, Big Scott Hall spent some time in Vern Gagne's AWA, probably best remembered for his popular pairing with Curt Hennig. Considered to be one of the most influential periods of Hall's career, it reached its peak in January of '86 when he and Curt wrestled an hour-long bout versus Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal, no, not that Steve Regal, to win the AWA tag titles. Hall and Hennig being tag champs, of course, helped to make this particular moment possible.
I'm Curt Hennig and Big Scott Hall. As tag team champs, we'll take on them all.
I know the bonkers Wrestlerock Rumble video was a group effort, but not all appearances in that thing were created equal. The Rockers have one of the worst performances on the track, while Nick Bockwinkel and Larry Zbyszko, of all people, fucking kill it. Somewhere in that upper echelon is this, the legendary pool scene with the tag champs. You could tell they were ready for the long riders, those dirtball dumbos. I've swooned enough over this footage for one lifetime, folks. All I'll say is that when you're the most iconic part of an already iconic piece of wrestle crap, that makes you a hero in my book. Number 5, the NWO versus Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, and Kevin Greene. That first year and a half of the NWO's run, from Bash the Beach '96 to Starrcade '97, they were booked really strong. Turns out a little too strong in hindsight. WCW didn't get too many wins against the bad men in black and white when it counted, but when they did pick up a W, it was pretty sweet. One of the best examples of the good guys winning for once during that run came at Slamboree '97 in Charlotte, North Carolina, a 6-man main event as the Outsiders and Six took on Roddy Piper, Carolina Panther Kevin Greene, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who hadn't wrestled in 6 months. Flair's much anticipated return to his hometown, paired with a crossover appearance by a pro football player from the home team, that's a dream scenario. This match had some great storytelling. Greene was impressive in his first ever match, and everyone else played their roles well. Another bonus layer of intrigue comes from the fact that Hall and Roddy Piper had legitimate backstage beef going into this match. Did it make their interactions in the match more interesting? You make the call. Though ultimately meaningless because it wasn't Hogan dropping the title or anything, the good guys coming out on top in Charlotte was a huge win for tradition, a ray of light in an otherwise dark time of NWO dominance. It was also one of the best and most high-profile matches of Hall's WCW career. Number 4, the curtain call. More than almost anything, more than a match or a promo or a character, Scott Hall simply had an influence on professional wrestling in America. The mid-1990s helped define the culture of the industry for decades to come, and Hall was at the center of many of the era's most pivotal moments. Case in point, the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden. May 19, 1996, Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H are caught on tape shattering the illusion of good guys and bad guys in front of a packed house show crowd. Hall and Nash are already out the door, headed to WCW. Shawn is the champion and politically bulletproof. Triple H is punished and gets his origin story. Though WWE has since gone on to use the fan cam footage for their own gain, at the time it was a scandalous and polarizing leak. To this day, people are still debating on whether or not the curtain call was actually good. But no matter your stance on it, there's no denying the effect it had on the business at the time. Without the curtain call, does the NWO play out the same? Does Triple H go on to become one of the biggest power players in the business? Does Austin 316 happen if not at King of the Ring '96? Would the Montreal Screwjob have happened? We'll never know, but at the end of the day, Hall's involvement in this piece of wrestling history is just one part of his legend. Number 3, ladder match pioneer. These days, it seems, a lot of folks in wrestling take the ladder match for granted. Heck, we rarely see any, I guess you could call them pure ladder matches, because most guys want to get tables and chairs in the mix too. But in 1994, the idea of the ladder match would have caused fans to be more confused than excited. Leave it to Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon to define an entire new genre of match in just 2 encounters. First, there was their memorable ladder match at WrestleMania 10. The two stole the show at MSG with an array of innovating and daring spots, with Razor walking away the undisputed Intercontinental Champion. 18 months later, HBK was hurtling toward a SummerSlam showdown with Sid until the big man was plucked from the feud at the last minute and replaced with Razor and another ladder match. The dynamic was a little different this time as both were now faces, so instead of a grudge match, we just saw 2 athletes putting it all on the line to achieve championship glory. While the WrestleMania match is obviously better remembered for being the first one on TV and at Mania, there's a sound argument to be made for the SummerSlam match being better. Not only did round 2 introduce a previously unheard of second ladder, they also rarely if ever used them as straight up weapons, rather instruments of torture or environmental hazards. Shawn would go on to withstand his opponent's offense to come out on top. Whichever is your favorite, both matches help set the standard for what has now become a go-to stipulation match in pro wrestling. And yes, we know Stampede did it first, okay? Number 2. Bash at the Beach, 1996. When it came to pulling the trigger on one of the biggest plot twists in all of wrestling, all the pieces fell into place at Bash at the Beach. Hall and Kevin Nash, the Outsiders, finally made their in-ring debut for WCW in a match against Lex Luger, Randy Savage, and Sting. Hall and Nash's third man was conspicuous in his absence, so what fans got instead was a well-orchestrated 2-on-3 match. All the participants get credit for this match, even Luger, who was carted out in the early going, as it built an unbelievable amount of tension for the climax. Then, of course, there's Hulk Hogan's transformation into Hollywood, and honestly, Hall and Nash deserve some love for making one of the lamest stars at the time cool by association. Though this chapter of the NWO story is much more about Hogan than anyone else, Hall's place in this moment is still pretty darned important. In fact, we might not have even had Bash at the Beach if it weren't for this, my pick for the best Scott Hall career moment. You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Whether it was due to his natural skills and abilities, fate, blind luck, or some combination of all those things, Scott Hall had a habit of being in the right place at the right time throughout his career. On a May 96 episode of Nitro, just days after the infamous curtain call, Scott Hall interrupted a match decked out in that iconic denim vest and jeans combo. The former Razor Ramon had stunned the crowd and viewers alike with its unadvertised appearance, declaring that a war was coming in WCW and he was firing the first shot. Because it's referenced so often, it's sort of cliche to talk about this moment now. But in a hypothetical situation where, say, Kevin Nash was the first to appear, then Scott Hall, while it would have been big, I don't think the overall storyline would have been as effective. This might sound like a knock on Hall, but I swear to God it isn't. Scott Hall was an amazing mid-card wrestler for a reason. He was a fantastic facilitator, a gateway to greatness. As I've alluded to a couple times in this countdown, Hall had the ability to improve almost any situation he was in, to make anyone or any angle look good. Diaper match with the 1-2-3 Kid notwithstanding, I did say almost. Anyway, without a great hand like Scott Hall to set up a big high spot or a business-changing storyline, the next step has less meaning. Scott was a big deal, but his arrival in WCW set up the bigger surprise of Nash's debut, and so on and so forth. The guy could look the part no matter where he went or what he did. How it ties in with the NWO angle may be a coincidence, but him elevating others above himself while becoming a star in his own right, that's one of the rarest qualities you can possess in wrestling. And that's why Scott Hall's Nitro debut is unquestionably his greatest career moment. Survey time! What other Scott Hall matches or moments do you think belong on this list? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Brian Zane, and that's one more for the good guy.
I'm Kurt Hennig and Big Scott Hall. As tag team champs, we'll take on them all. So bring on the long riders, those dirtball dumbos. We'll smear those bushes, do the Wrestlerock rumble.